quarterback rankings. How many quarterbacks did you end up looking at for this?
I did an even 10.
Okay, I can presume who the guy that got left out was. I did 11, and to be frank, I had 10 until you mentioned a name that I almost left off. We'll get into who that name was. I did 11. Was Kurtis Rourke the guy that you left off?
Oh yeah, I had a few guys. The guys that are left off, I think I have 10 draftable players. And the guys who were left off, I wouldn't. I think are UDFA, 7th rounders that I don't project anything in the league for.
Okay, there you go. And yeah, I had Rourke left off. I know there's a guy that you have on your list that I also have left off that I would not have a draftable grade on. So I'm interested to see who the other guy is. I can take a guess that it's probably Leonard. I will jump into Kurtis Rourke, though, because he's a guy that you do not have. Kurtis Rourke ended up being my 11th quarterback in this class, so it's just kind of the way that it worked out. Kurtis Rourke, for those who don't know, I used quarterback this past year, spent, I think it was 4 seasons over at Ohio. He's actually a Canadian, so this week we are rooting against him because go USA and 4 nations. That's besides the point. But watching Kurtis Rourke, he really just projects as a good backup, maybe a third stringer for me. He's definitely your pocket passer. He throws with good anticipation, and he has a very good over-the-shoulder throwing. There was a lot of plays that we had saw with him this season with Shough and Omar. Obviously, have seen him a lot this season, both in person and watching him as I go to IU. And a lot of that IU offense was outside zone and fades. So he got very, very good at throwing those over-the-shoulder throws. But he struggled a lot when he didn't have a clean pocket and when he had to go off script. I don't really see him as anyone who can create outside of the pocket. Age is a big factor for him as well. He'll be 25 by the time the season rolls around. And then medicals, he played the majority of the season, I think since week 3 on a partially torn ACL, which is kind of ridiculous. I love the grit out of him. But I'm wondering what the medicals kind of look like for him. But yeah, he's just a guy that is going to be an okay passer within the pocket, but really doesn't do much outside of that. If I had to guess, Max Bresner is the quarterback I don't have listed.
Yeah.
Do you want to get into him?
I don't have him listed. All right. Do you want to do it the same way?
Yo, you don't have him listed?
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought you had him listed. Yeah, we can start from the bottom.
Yeah. I have 10 guys. All right. Number 10. Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers. Again, with the bottom tier, I kind of have 9 and 10 are kind of singled off. I think these are day 3 guys through and through, just because of my overall concerns. 5, 6, 7, 8 are backups that I like and I'll gamble on in early round 4 into maybe day 2. But even then, it's still a reach of a position. I probably have those guys in the 100s if I had to make a big board right now. And then 1, 2, 3, and 4 are guys that I would take in the top 3 rounds pretty convictingly. So yeah. So that's kind of how it is. But starting with Quinn Ewers, his pros, he has good arm talent. He can make it work in structure with the talent around him. I think Texas has produced a lot of talent around him, and he's been able to throw to Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, JT Sanders, and then even this year with Isaiah Bond, who was kind of injured on and on, but Matthew Golden became a star around him. Ewers, he can make throws, he can make plays downfield when flooded from the pocket. When on the move, he does keep his eyes down the field. and can make those throws. And then he has control of throwing with velocity and touch. My cons with him were pretty simple. Like, if Quinn Ewers had like a cut up, if you went on YouTube and you watched Quinn Ewers highlights for 4.5 minutes, you'd be like, all right, this guy's a first rounder. And then you watch everything else.
Yes.
And it's just this, it's just chaos. It's chaos in the worst way possible for me. And maybe I'm like not the right person to rank him, but the arm velocity is fine, but it wasn't good enough for me. His like mechanics overall, like I'm a big mechanics guy, and he was always jumpy in the pocket, and the lower body was always moving, and the way his arm worked, if you're a Texas fan, you know this more than anybody, the way his arm angle went, like there were so many times where he was batted at the line of scrimmage in the college level against, like he didn't play Mississippi State, but teams like that, lower end of the conference, they're just getting their hands up when he's throwing the ball, looking at him, and incomplete pass, 2nd and 10. He had some of the worst pocket feel in the class for me. He gets tunnel vision so often,
Yes.
and when time eats up, he just stands and he'll just take sacks. Like the Georgia game was the most damning piece of evidence for him this entire draft season. It was awful stuff. It really was. And then this turnover-worthy plays. He had 21 over the course of the season. And of the guys on this list, he had a 4.0 turnover-worthy play percentage, and that was the worst in the class for me. Or it was, like, the numbers. It was the worst in the class. So, overall, like, the athletic tools, like his arm and things like that, and he has good accuracy, and he has the times where it looks great. But overall, like, everything else gives me so much hesitancy and so much scared. Like, I just feel scared that I'm not banging the table in the draft room needing to get this guy. If he makes it to round 6 and you're just like, all right, let's do it. We have 4 6th round picks. Let's just throw one at Quinn Ewers and see if he can stick around. But I don't have much confidence in banging the table for this guy to be drafted for me.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be where our biggest disparity within the rankings are going to come within the quarterbacks. I have him ranked at QB6 for me. And I absolutely agree. I mean, in his negatives, it's the pocket presence. Like, he kind of creates pressure that isn't there. He stands in for way too long. And he's kind of polar on both ends. Again, there's no pressure. You're getting out for some reason, and then there's a whole bunch of pressure, and now you're not getting out. It was just really, really confusing. His pocket awareness was very, very bad. And all, like you said, his accuracy at times, to be frank, is god awful. God awful. But the reason that I do have him ranked at QB6 is strictly because the guys I have ranked below him are guys that I see strictly as just only being backup quarterbacks. And the reason I have Quinn Ewers in front of them is because of that arm. I think he probably has the best arm within the class, which really isn't saying much because there's a lot of guys within this class that don't have huge arms. But for me, it's the banking on the arm within a class that is littered with just backup quarterbacks. If you want to take your shot, like you said, a bit later on in the draft on someone who actually has like that one trait that you really, really like, go ahead and do it. So we viewed his film quite similarly in his kind of pros and cons. I just liked his arm and valued that a little bit more than the rest of the class. I think he has, again, the upside to be a good passer with his arm. Like you said, we saw it at moments. You look at his highlight tape and you're like, this guy's very good. But at the end of the day, he is way too inconsistent to be taken high in this class. For my QB 10, I viewed him very similar to Rourke. That's going to be Kyle McCord. I think he's a better athlete than Kyle McCord or than Chris Rourke, so that's why he's going to be ranked in front of him. I think Kyle McCord has kind of the prototypical NFL size that you like to see. He's very good at anticipating the blitz. We didn't see that much at OSU, but at his time in Syracuse, he got very, very good at that. And then he was really good at kind of anticipating throws and then keeping his eyes down the field when rolling out. I don't think he can create much as an athlete and as a runner. But when he's out of the pocket, I do like his ability more than Rourke to kind of create something while on the run. That being said, he is plagued with that risky throw and that tunnel vision that we talked about. It felt like at times he would look at the defense and kind of already predetermine who he's going to throw it to and say, on this snap, I'm going to throw it to him because he's a guy with the red route. And that forced him into some very bad, very risky throws, and at times, again, a very one-read quarterback. And I was not a big fan of that. So that's why he's QB 10 for me. Where do you have Kyle McCord?
I have McCord at 7, so I'm a little bit higher on him.
7?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think he was in a good way, he was a robotic thrower with fluid body motion and a quick release. Everything was he was just a standard pocket passer. And I was appreciative of, going into it and remembering the OSU days where he felt frantic in those big games. He didn't look like that in Syracuse. He was accurate from the pocket and in rhythm. He can access both touch and velocity when throwing downfield. He's a smart thrower. He was great in one-on-one game when those guys were in back shoulder situations and they didn't separate all that well. He could throw guys open, and I was really impressed with that. But the cons, he's not athletic. He was not athletic on the move. He was a true from-the-pocket player only, and he had a limited arm in a sense. Once you got too far downfield, you saw that ball flutter. He was spooked by pressure for me. A lot of these guys, a lot of the pressure stuff worries me. And then we mentioned it, he gets tunnel vision. It created a lot of turnover-worthy plays. He had 24 of those, which was the most in the class, and he had a 3.5%, which is second worst. Only Quinn was behind him. But I had him at 7. I really enjoyed what he is. He is in my backups to gamble on tier that I'm just like I expect you to be drafted in the 4th and 5th round, and I think he could stick around the NFL for a while.
All right, there you go. Who do you have at QB9? I think without knowing your ranking, I would guess this is probably going to be the spot that we agree on.
I have Dillon Gabriel at 9.
Okay, I was wrong. I have Dillon Gabriel 8, so I'm not too far behind. So, but
Dillon Gabriel. If you could put the things of Gabriel into Quinn Ewers' body, I would see a quarterback prospect that I'd be willing to gamble on and take in this draft.
Oh yeah.
But his pros, he was a good scrambler, good improvisation skills. He throws from the pocket with strong conviction and good accuracy. I was impressed by that. He has the rhythm and timing to get the job done, played a lot of football, good amount of experience. But the cons were just so damning for me. He's small and he's old. He's under 6 foot. He's going to be turning 25 during the season. He doesn't have elite physical strengths. Even if he's a smart scrambler, it doesn't mean that he is, a Jalen Milroe in this class, or even a guy I'll talk about in a little bit. But the arm wasn't NFL level. The man-to-man stuff was hard. The only man-to-man beater I really saw from them was him throwing the fade, which he could throw a pretty good fade ball. But you're not going to get many of those in the NFL with his arm. Just overall, the cons were just, I like the player. It's just, you're small and you're an older player. It's just hard for me to get on board and bang the table for that guy when there's other guys in this class that I just prefer a little bit more. So I think we share similar beliefs on Gabriel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think in terms of strictly tape and you take everything out of it, he has a some of the best tape, top 3 tape for sure within this class. Again, throwing from the pocket, he's very much like your point guard, kind of along the stuff that we saw Bo Nix within the same system do. He throws a very accurate and catchable ball. Like you said, good scrambler and has good timing. And it's the same exact stuff that you said. He's very undersized. He has that below average arm. And then for a guy that relies so heavily on kind of timing and rhythm, when that's not there and he spirals, it spirals. If you go to like a Michigan game and you look at his stats very briefly, like, it was a fine game. But when you actually sit down and you break down the tape of that Michigan game, it was not a good game for him. Everything seemed a little bit off timing. Michigan's defense made it a little bit hard for him, and you kind of saw how that affected him in his timing and his throwing. So it can kind of spiral a little bit for him when that stuff isn't there. And I think a lot of that stems back from him just not, being able to see over his offensive line, not being able to kind of hit that deep ball. At the end of the day, I think he's one of the smarter quarterback prospects within the class who offers some really good deep threat ability, but lacks that physical upside with, again, both the size and the arm. And then with the age, be a fun backup quarterback, kind of could be even a good place starter or something within the role of maybe like a Gardner Minshew. Obviously not the same playing style, but kind of the role I could see him finding himself within the NFL. Good quarterback, just lacks the top end kind of physical traits that you would like to see out of him. My 9, which I'm presuming is going to be your 8, Riley Leonard. I like Riley Leonard. We all watch the national championship. We can all agree he's a good mover. He offers that kind of dual threat that we would like to see. He throws with very good touch on his deep ball, and he has good pocket presence. In terms of mechanics is more of a Matt thing. I'm really good with mechanics with offensive line, not the best with mechanics in terms of quarterbacks. So Matt will have to tell you a little bit more about that. But again, good mover, has a solid, deep ball with touch and can really operate a pocket well. But he can throw a deep ball with touch, but sometimes that ball placement and accuracy just isn't there. There were a lot of times where he kind of left his receivers kind of having to drift off of a route or coming back to a route to catch some of his balls, either because it was poorly placed or it was just underthrown, with a very average arm in this class. Again, another fun backup quarterback that offers some dual threat ability, but doesn't have those amazing kind of arm talents with accuracy and arm strength and velocity that you would like to see from start.
Yeah, I have Riley Leonard at QB6 for me. I'm much higher on Riley Leonard than anyone else. I think you will find. I think he was a very good athlete, and the mobility makes him a true dual threat for me at the next level. And he has the arm talent to drive the ball, drive with velocity consistently for me, layering throws in zone. But he doesn't have an overworld arm. It's not unique, one-of-a-kind arm. He manages the game with effectiveness, with the point guard mentality, a great distribution pattern. He just operates in a calm demeanor for me. But the cons, my number one con, and I think you can agree, it was a very chaotic film watch. He's a very chaotic player.
Yes.
The mechanics were stiff, and he felt planted to the ground at times. There were the Penn State game,
heavy feet
specifically. Yes, it was just, he felt brick feet. He has brick feet. He gets spooked by the pressure packages, and it'll get nasty. He loses the calmness when the pressure is bearing down. And then you mentioned the accuracy. The ball placement is buckshot outside the numbers on quick and intermediate game. I really love his stuff in between the hashes, especially at the next level. But the the deeper the throw, it gets more and more scary for me. I'm much higher than him on him than really anybody else because of those tools. But overall, he needs to get better. And I think if you clean up the mechanics and the things with his feet, I thought he was a good mover at times in the pocket. It's just overall it needs to get better at the next level. But again, he's another guy that I expect to be a backup. But if I'm sitting in the 130s, I like this guy. I want to take him. I want to bang the table and say, let's see if we can figure out Riley Leonard, because I like the tools and I like, with the way the NFL is going, being a distributor, being a point guard, you can operate a lot of those simple NFL concepts into his brain, and because they did a lot of that at Notre Dame. So I'm high on Riley Leonard. I really think he could be a guy at the next level. It's just, it takes some time. It's going to take time with him.
Yeah, right. Riley Leonard is one of those prospects, because I don't know if you do the same. I like to kind of get a feel of where everyone lays out on my board, watch a few games, and then kind of cross-check with everyone else. When it's all said and done, me and Matt will probably cross-check our boards with each other, and we kind of do that normally, but we're trying to stay away from it so it could be a surprise for each other on this. But yeah, Riley Leonard is one of those guys that is kind of all over everyone's board. You definitely have him higher than what I normally see, but some people are saying, like, yeah, go ahead, take him, early day 3, and then some people are saying he doesn't have a draftable grade. I don't think his film even translates to the NFL. So he's one of those guys that has like a wide range of opinions on him. It's,
he could be picked with
crazy.
Any
so
single
QB,
day 3 pick.
Yes, absolutely. So QB, what, 8 for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've Will Howard. I think this one is. He was pretty easy for me. Like, he has great traits for an older player. He's huge, 6'4", 230, and he looks the part of being that size. He has a solid arm, good movement skills, has a quick decision release. He makes things happen with downfield accuracy. But again, throwing at Ohio State is much easier than throwing at a lot of other places. But he did have the layered ball placement. He throws with touch and velocity, and he can throw guys open. But the cons, everything else feels like a work in progress for me. Inconsistent quick game accuracy, inconsistent against pressure packages. The mechanics in the lower half need to get better, and he was overly aggressive at times due to the talent around him. I thought he got in harm's way a few times, but again, like during that run, those other, like the playoff run, a lot of those guys did the things for him, and he made a lot of things happen. So yeah, I think Will Howard was pretty easy for me. Just watching him, I watched probably 2 or 3 games, and nothing really, everything was the same for him. It wasn't chaotic whatsoever. And again, playing at Ohio State, it's easy for that to happen. But yeah, what were your thoughts on Will Howard?
Yeah, I had Will Howard at 7, so I'm right there with you. I think he's compared to.
Did you have McCord at 8, or you had McCord at 10? You'll have to send me after. So
I had McCord at 10. Yeah. And we'll run back through our list once we're done with this. Yeah, I had in terms of Will Howard, like you said, I think his best tape was down the stretch of the season. We kind of saw him hit his stride and again lean on those weapons that he has in this Ohio State offense. Like you said, he does a really good job of layering those throws. I think he's a plus athlete, not an amazing athlete like some of these guys in this class, but still a plus athlete, and can really make plays outside of the structure of the offense. That being said, I think sometimes kind of the same thing that we saw with Kyle McCord, obviously not to the same extent that we saw with Kyle McCord. I think he kind of reads the defense pre-snap, doesn't make a whole lot of adjustments post-snap. He can kind of lock on to kind of one or two reads without the defense, without seeing the defense change. And we saw that was like the big reason that Michigan had so much success against him, was the fact that they showed him one thing pre-snap and did something else post-snap, and it kind of messed with his head a little bit. Again, down the stretch of the season, within the playoffs, that did get better. And then sometimes he just makes just like really silly throws, and like that's funny. Like that's the word I use, but like I'm sitting there and I'm like, that just didn't make any sense. I don't know what you were seeing, what you were looking at when trying to make that throw. Age, but that's kind of what it's going to be for the majority of the guys within this class. And then on those deep balls, he kind of like hangs the ball up in the air a little bit, and he was able to get away with doing that because he had Jeremiah Smith in this class. But at the next level, if you leave those balls floating a little bit too long,
the guys were waiting on the balls.
These DBs
too much for my liking.
What?
The ball did hang in the air, and those guys were waiting on the ball. I'm just agreeing with your point. Yeah.
So he hangs them. At the end of the day, like I said, I think his best tape happened when it mattered the most down the stretch. He offers some athleticism and some good talent to be a good backup quarterback within the league. Of all of the guys within that tier, for me, 11 through 7 are within their own tier. Kurtis, Rourke, Kyle McCord, Riley Leonard, Dillon, Gabriel, Will Howard. I think if anyone was going to make the jump as a starter, it would probably be Will Howard. And then I have Quinn Ewers in his own little separate tier all by himself because he's a special boy. But QB 8 for you. Or 6.
I just did QB 8.
7.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, I have. So So 10 was Ewers, 9 Gabriel, 8 Will Howard, 7 McCord, and then 6 Riley Leonard. So I'm all the way up to 5. This is awesome. The one guy. This is the one guy that he's in his own little happy medium.
Yes.
He's in his own little happy medium for me. Jaxson Dart.
Oh, you did it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyways,
yeah. That spoils who the next guy is. But yeah, Dart turns 22 in May. He has the traits to see success. He has a good, solid arm. It wasn't an overworld arm. Plus athlete when creating. Quick timing release with the arm angles was a plus. Can throw with touch and velocity and could create on the move both downfield and in the run game. But the cons are just so scary for me, man. Lots of half field read leading to when it becomes full read, he doesn't process information, especially with NFL levels of speed. Everything in the pocket can create around him with pressure, makes bad decisions, takes back sacks, and the mechanics when driving and pointing the feet need tooling at the next level. I understand why people want to gamble on Jaxson Dart. I think if you get the right, staff behind him, it can all come together. But everything around is just so. I'm just so hesitant on everything else. Like I will not get there with the first round stuff. Not gonna happen for me. If you like his traits enough, you want to push him up there, that's fine. But I will not get there. He's creeps into third round for me, maybe. Like if quarterbacks go and my QB4 really has the injury problems that I expect him to have, he could be red flagged. So maybe you push Dart past that guy, but overall, man, it's hard to get there with the first round buzz stuff for him. Yeah.
No, I don't have a first round grade for him. Jaxson Dart's actually QB4. To be frank, the only reason he is QB4, like you mentioned, is the injury and age of my QB5. Strictly off of like tape, talent, what we have seen, he is QB5. But QB5, we'll get into in a minute, has some really big red flags in terms of age and medicals and stuff. And that's why I was jumping for joy when I heard you have him at 5, because it clicked in my head that you had a guy ranked ahead of him. You did what I really wanted to do but couldn't because of those red flags. Jaxson Dart, though. We'll get into Jaxson Dart. No, Jaxson Dart, I think he, at any moment within the offense, can formulate a big play. He's a big play threat. He has very good instincts. And kind of when watching Ole Miss, like the word that I like keeps coming to mind when I see him play is he's just tough. He's just a tough dude. He's a good runner. He can create, not amazing at it. But yeah, like you said, he very much plays within that Lane Kiffin offense that is very quarterback friendly. It doesn't really ask him to do a whole lot of reads. He took 9 snaps under center over his last 2 years at Ole Miss, which is not a lot at all. He can be very, very reckless at times because he kind of leans on his arm and everything. He is bad in the pocket. He doesn't have really good pocket presence, like you mentioned. And then fumbles. This year wasn't a huge issue for him. He only had 2 fumbles. But if you go back to just last year, he had fumbled the ball 10 times. With just not not good at all. Like you said, not there on the first round for him. But if you look at, again, his arm and his ability to create and him just being being a tough and like good instinctive player, I can see why people like him. But like you said, he's just coming from an offense that didn't really ask him to do really any reading. It was just the next. And like it was just kind of all built into the offense, and it didn't really require a lot of mental load from the quarterback position that you see in the NFL. And that scares you because if you take a guy like that, you're going to have to teach him that. And if you take a guy within the first round, like some people are trying to argue, you would hope that's already there. And it's just not there for Jaxson Dart. But like I said, he's a really, really fun watch. So I understand why people are kind of like him and kind of have the draw to him. But to your QB4, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, one last point on Dart. I don't think there's a quarterback this cycle I've watched more than Dart, just like on repeat. Like, I am trying so hard to understand it, and I just don't. I threw my hands up on the third rewatch. Like, that Florida game was just reckless abandonment. It was just awful stuff, and like I just couldn't get there with Dart. Like, I understand. I'll respect your opinion and I'll understand why, but I won't get there. But yeah. Number 4, Tyler Shough out of Louisville. His pros, man. This guy dominated the Senior Bowl for me. He had the second best tape of anybody I watched this year. He was the best at the Senior Bowl by far for me. Overall, like, he showed out around these guys. It was impressive stuff, and that's why I put him at 4, barring the red flags and everything like that, like the injury stuff. I thought he was some of my favorite stuff I watched this year. He had a cannon arm for all areas, paired with a smooth release, getting the ball out with pristine timing. He throws guys with anticipation and timing. Not a lot of guys do that in this class. He manages the pocket with authority to create things downfield, and he doesn't put the ball in harm's way with the turnover-worthy plays. He had 8 all season, 1.8 in the class, behind only Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel. The cons, he's 26, and he has a ton of lower body injuries. I would completely get why an NFL team would know something about the knee, and he's off the board completely. I am fully aware of that. But overall, he's a guy I'm willing to gamble on. The confidence in the pocket to drive downfield consistently was a problem for me. He doesn't have that. Like, I wanted someone to get in his head and be like, I don't care about the interceptions, just drive the ball. But it might have been lack of talent, lack of trust in his players to really do that consistently. The lower half mechanics get him in trouble for me. He'll throw off the back foot to the check down, and there's times that you just pointed out. You go, in the NFL, you can't get away with that, sir. And that'll be coached into him. I think that there were times he would throw off the back foot just because he saw it open, and he's just like, well, I'm not getting hit again in this leg. Like, I'm just not. It's not happening this time. I'm playing football this year. But it was a problem. He had a consistent ball placement problem. Needs to see some things better. Sometimes, leverage will dictate a back shoulder throw or putting the ball upfield into space. That showed some things with me that I just want you to be. You're a smart thrower. It's just those little things, like McCord has it where Shough didn't have it as consistently. Those are the things that, because of his archetype, those are the things I really want you to get better at, because all the other stuff I really love. So just at that point, I was kind of nitpicking, trying to make the perfect player. And so, yeah, it's just, I really love this guy. He was an awesome watch if you haven't watched him at all. But, yeah, I assume you have him at 5. So you can talk about some Shough.
Yes. Yeah, no, I had him at 5. Like I said, I wanted to do him at 4, but I just couldn't because of those concerns that you had mentioned. He has very much, in terms of tape and medical concerns, the shades of Carson Strong. And me and you talked about this a little bit last night,
actually. That's the name that kept coming back.
He has some very, very, very good tape, but who knows when it comes back to medicals. That's the whole reason Carson Strong became a UDFA, and Carson Strong was a UDFA and got paid the most money from UDFA because he had some very good talent, but no team was willing to kind of gamble on the knee and lower body injuries. But yeah, this is a guy that I completely almost left off my list. He was kind of an afterthought. And then Matt kind of mentioned him in passing. I think Matt was kind of, I don't want to say keeping it quiet, but Matt was just here's the quarterbacks I watched and didn't really mention much about him. Maybe it was because you kind of wanted to see where I had him ranked. And I was like, yeah, I'll throw on a few games for him and see what he's like. And yeah, I came away just very, very impressed with him. He has a good arm. He throws again with very good velocity. Again, I'm not super in the know with the mechanics on it, but when I watch him, he has a very good, smooth release. Operates very, very well from the pocket, but then has good mobility to kind of get out of the pocket and make some kind of, I don't want to say it, but make a little bit of those kind of Mahomes throws with his arm angles. His ability to kind of change his arm slot and make some throws that we don't normally see was very impressive to me. But in terms of the cons, like you said, it's the age. He's gonna be 26 by the time the season starts. It's the injuries, and for him, and I think a lot of it has to do with the offense he played in. Again, kind of the lack of talent that he had. He did kind of have that hero ball mentality a little bit too much, and kind of tried to make a bit too many plays that just weren't there, and you kind of just need to give it up and just kind of throw it out of bounds. And then you had mentioned it. He kind of has those shades of Jordan Love with those back foot fades, where he just kind of steps back into the throw and throws it, which every single time I see it, I just cringe just a little bit. It's a bit upsetting. I'm like, please don't do that. And then I don't know if you saw this as well. Again, he has good accuracy, but when I watched him, it looked like he was missing high on a lot of the balls. And I don't know how much of that has to do with mechanics in the release, but it seems like when he was missing throws, it was because he was kind of giving it too much air on them. And it was a bit frustrating because I'm like, well, clearly you can do it because you're getting the ball there. Pull it down a little bit, bring it down a little bit. But yeah, like I said, he has some of the best film, like you said, some of the best film was a really, really fun watch. Kind of that true gunslinger mentality that you see. But the medicals are going to be the big question for him. So, but QB3, I know we're going to disagree on QB3. I just know we're going to do it. But who's your QB3?
I have Shedeur. No, I have Jalen Milroe. I didn't want to get your hopes up. Yeah, Jalen Milroe. He is an elite athlete with elite explosiveness, all rocked up in a 6'1", 220-pound frame. The dude is just a tank, and overall, he has a great arm when pushing down the field and when he's on the run. He was pretty solid throwing out the outside. The numbers developed from a UDFA into a solid player, like a guy that I'm willing to take in the top 2 rounds from where he was a year ago, like that game against Michigan. That was just damning. And even like the bowl game this year was not great stuff, but he developed over the course of a year's time. But the cons are the cons. Like, he's a raw passer in terms of tunnel vision from the pocket. He bails from good pockets, the anticipation, everything. He is just a ball of clay when it comes down to it. He's a younger guy that there's someone who's just, it's an eye of a beholder. Like, someone's going to really love this guy. I just truly believe it because of the athletic tools. He doesn't trust what he sees. Will watch things about to come open. And he doesn't rip it with authority. He'll see things open. The aggressiveness, you have the arm. You have the arm to do it. It was a big problem with me. The quick game accuracy is a major red flag with so many buckshot sprays in either direction, being too far upfield, being way behind. Had the play against Oklahoma where he just doesn't feel anything. Like, he just didn't feel anything as a thrower, and that was the pick 6. He had bad pocket feel and the sense of pressure. It broke him sometimes, and he would just, because he's an athlete, he taught himself, I'm so much faster than everybody, so I would break from bad pockets, and I would try and make an explosive out of that. So, yeah, Milroe is just, I know I had him at 1 when we did this back in, October. I was really intrigued by what he had developed the first few games. The Georgia game was incredible, and then everything else happened, and it's just, he kind of went at a linear place from the Georgia game for me, where I was kind of projecting continue to ascend, and he didn't, in a way. So I understand it. I think he's a top 64 pick. I think someone's going to do it, no matter who it is. But again, you can't throw him out there week 1. You can't throw him out there week 15. You can't expect him to drop in there and win some football games if you're in a spot where it's week 18, like Mahomes was his rookie year, and you kind of just, here, go, death by fire. Go learn some things just running around. But, yeah, I know we are a little different on Milroe, so you can take the floor.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I mean, as his write-up, that's what I said. I mean, like, super athlete, but needs that time. And in all caps, I said, shouldn't see the field at all in year 1. I don't care if he is behind Tyrod Taylor and the team is collapsing and it's awful. You cannot throw him out there. He needs to develop the mental side of this game desperately. But he offers all of the physical tools that you would want. He has a very good arm, the best runner of anyone within this class. I mean, if it doesn't work out, he could freaking be a running back. I mean, that's how good of a runner this kid is. And he has. I put this in the pro category, but I think it can be cause for a reason as to why we see a lot of the stuff in his con category. He has a very quick release, one of the quickest releases in this entire class, if not the quickest release in the entire class. But because of that, I think that is a big reason as to why he's lacking that consistency. He doesn't take the extra second to kind of wind up and do it. He's just trying to get out and throw it as quick as he can. And I think that quick release kind of leads him to being an inaccurate quarterback. I also think the other reason is he has Kenny Pickett hands. he has all of these physical stuff that we like, but at the Senior Bowl, he had 8.5-inch hands. There is one starting quarterback in the NFL that has 9-inch hands, and that's Joe Burrow. And that's kind of the very firm cutoff. Like, if you don't have at least 9-inch hands, we don't really trust you. And the 8.5 hands, I mean, again, I think that's part of the reason that we see him being as inaccurate as he is. I said this, he needs to look up often. He needs to look up, and he's quick to just run and bail out of the pocket, like you said. Again, he, in his head, is like, I'm this great athlete, so I'm just going to beat you. But within the quarterback position, you kind of need to look up and then see what the routes look like as they're developing down the field. He's running to run. He is not running to create, more time for his wide receivers to get open. And I think that's something I would really like to see him develop as he takes the next step. Use that athleticism to get out of the pocket, give your wide receivers time to kind of create a little bit of space and then get it there. Don't just run to run. And those are kind of the big things about it. And the polar opposite of what we saw with Dillon Gabriel, right? We liked how smart and how much of a rhythm and timing passer Dillon Gabriel is, and how much anticipation that Dillon Gabriel threw with, but he lacked all of the physical traits that you would like, and he's the reverse of that. He has every single thing that you would like out of a quarterback outside of the small hands, but there's a lot of questions for him as a passer, again, with that anticipation, with the low accuracy, and just kind of scrambling out. So I think if he gets within a good system, and I've kind of consistently said it, the guy I would really like him to learn from is McVay. I think if they can get him in the – do they have a second-round pick this year? I don't know. But if they have a second-round pick – that's what it was. If they can find a way to get him, I would love that. Sit behind a truly offensive, masterclass coach and learn and really listen and soak up what he is telling you, to then put all of these amazing, wonderful traits that you have into actual good use. I think if he can, again, kind of develop a bit of a passer and kind of develop the mental side of the game and kind of get the accuracy under control, he can be a very, 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 very good quarterback with all of the physical upsides he has. But at the end of the day, he doesn't. That's why he's not quarterback one within this class. And I also think it helps that Shedeur Sanders in many people's boards is QB2. I am should come as no surprise, just completely out on Shedeur Sanders. For many different reasons, I wanted to drop Shedeur Sanders even lower than 3. I liked even Chuck's film better. I did not want to take Sanders at 3, but this is just where it is. I think it might just be I'm just too scared to go so far against the grain as everyone else. And that's kind of why Sanders is at 3 and not even lower. But before I kind of spend 3 minutes pooping on Shedeur Sanders, what do you like about Shedeur Sanders?
So yeah, I have Shedeur at QB2. The pros for me, he was boring in the best way possible. Ball placement and accuracy was his superpower. Being able to put the ball in tight windows with touch and poise from the pocket. Good pocket feel and can throw from muddy pockets effectively. Has the processing vision when he has a good pocket to get through the progressions, go to 1 to 2 to 3. And he has that little Mahomes trait to him where it's a herky-jerky movement, kind of creating space and time. But he does it pretty well when the pocket gets bad, and he is a thrower. He keeps the eyes downfield, and he can make plays like that. The cons, he had no overwhelming traits as a quarterback. The arm is clearly limited.
No.
He wasn't a plus athlete at the position in 2025, even being like slight. Like he's gonna come in very skinny, and guys like Daniels can make it work because they're super athletic, and Lamar can make it work. So the things like that make me hesitant with him. He doesn't throw guys open with consistency. He waits on timing routes. He needs to see it to believe it in a way. His drop back is sloppy, not confident in planting his lower half. More so, like he had a scraping back pedal, more so than a defiant like drop off the back foot and drive. So that was something, but those are mechanic issues. Those can be coached up for any player. Like the mechanics can get better in the lower half, but and then the pocket stuff, the pocket drifting. He drifts side to side more so than claiming the space in front of him. That was something that I had a problem with. The average athlete comes up with his pressure feel, and it created negative plays. He had some of the worst pressure to sack in the country this year. He had like a 20% pressure to sack rate, which isn't good at the NFL level. So there are things that I need him to get a lot better at. The difference between him and 1 with Cam Ward is a bigger difference than 2 to 3 to Milroe. And I'm not overly in love with Milroe. So there is a convicting number one quarterback for me in this class.
Absolutely.
Shedeur, I can't get there at 3. Like I can't get there with the Giants. I can't. And so it's probably going to happen in the top 10 just because, the quarterback saturation of it all, and you need to get one of these guys and him on a rookie deal. But it's one of those things that, like, when you are this archetype, when you are a pocket passer, you need to feel like Burrow, you need to feel like Prescott, you need to feel perfect in all the little things that you can control because you aren't overwhelming in anything. You don't have an overwhelming arm. You aren't an overwhelming athlete to create space. Everything has to be perfect, and that's why I'm not willing to gamble on this guy as high as some people, but I get it. Like, again, he's boring in the best way.
I don't.
So yeah. It's just hard. It's hard to get there. It's ironic to me that, Deion's kid is one of the more boring prospects I've watched at the quarterback position this year. Like, it's just... It is what it is. So, you can take the buck on Shedeur, but yeah.
Yeah, like really the sentence that I want to like grab, and I wish I could take like a clip of it and just replay it over and over and over and over and over again and just spread it to everyone that's out there. He doesn't do anything amazing. He doesn't do anything at a high level, and there's a lot of things in his game that is just quite frankly bad. In terms of positives, because I don't want to just like poop on him the entire time. He does a good job throwing on the run, and I think he's a functionally athletic quarterback. I don't think he's going to be like this amazing quarterback. Well, by functionally athletic, think of something kind of along the lines of kind of a Patrick Mahomes. He can get the job done when it's called upon. Maybe a Baker Mayfield is a better liking for that. He can get the job done when he needs to, and he's a very calm guy who has a lot of charisma. And then I put accuracy on here. I was really hesitant to put accuracy on the pros for him, though, because it was upwards of like 45% of his throws were screen passes, RPOs, and curls. You better be accurate on those throws.
Like the curl stuff, like he needed to see it. Like that was
yes,
yeah.
Yes. And there were often times too. Again, like I kind of talked about this within the chat. I went through and I'm like, let me find his best game statistically and let me watch it. And that was going to be the Oak State game in terms of the film that I had available. And it was just, it was so not impressive. There were plenty of times within the game where like his wide receiver, like on a slant route or something, had someone beat, and he was able to get the ball to the wide receiver. Congratulations, but it wasn't a good ball. It was down by his feet. The wide receiver had to adjust back and catch it on a 5-yard slant. So instead of getting an extra 5-10 yards out of that catch, it was just the 5 yards that he got from the throw because the placement wasn't there. So people want to tout him as this very good, accurate thrower, which he gets the ball where it needs to go. Awesome. The placement isn't amazing in any terms. And like you said, he has to see guys open. He just does not throw with anticipation at all. He has to wait until he sees that open, and that's just not going to happen in the short game in the NFL. You're going to have to time up. I know my wide receiver there is going to hit his hitch route and come back to me. And I know the DB's right on his hip, but I know that when he hits that hitch, the DB is going to go another 2 yards. So I need to throw that right as that hitch is coming. And he just didn't have that ability to do it at the college level. Now, that is something that can develop when you get into the NFL and you get into a system and someone can teach you that. So I don't want to harp on that too much. The pocket management was also very bad. A lot of people talk, well, you don't have a good offensive line. Yes, but a lot of the sacks were on him. He kind of tended to not feel pressure at all, or even at times rolled into pressure, which I didn't like. It was ridiculous. There was, again, another play against State where he was looking off to the right. Travis Hunter was there waiting to see Travis Hunter, and there was a linebacker who came unblocked and just straight through the A-gap. Didn't even see him. Just sat there and wet and got hit by him because he just wasn't looking. He just doesn't have a good pocket feel. He lacks the top-end talent, and to be frank, you can see it in his game, and he recognizes it. There were plenty of times on tape where he had a guy 45 yards down the field, and he would, again, be functionally athletic and use a little bit and get out of the pocket and see the guy open, and you could see him actively wind up to go and hit that, and then you could almost see the gears turn in his head and say, I don't have the arm for that. And then he would wind up to go and hit it, and then look away and hit something underneath. And he also kind of lacks that deep ball anticipation as well. He just doesn't let the play develop. There were quite often times where guys did open up downfield. They were covered at the first snap and said, well, they're covered. I'm not going to throw it to them. But if you get another half second, they're going to find their way open. And he just didn't allow them to do that. I think he was a quarterback that was heavily reliant on Travis Hunter. There were many, many times in the course of the last 2 years. I didn't watch any of his Jacksonville State tape, so I don't know how it was then. But there were many times over the last 2 years at Colorado where it was just F it, Travis Hunter's down there somewhere. Let me throw it up to him. And it worked out because it was Travis Hunter. But it's not going to always work in the NFL. And again, that's why he's at QB3, and that's quite frankly why I wanted to have him lower. But I guess I'm a bit scared to be too wrong on him because there are plenty of people that do see him, being taken in the top 10, and it's kind of a Jaxson Dart situation with you where I'm just I don't see it. People do. I'm gonna let people see it, and I don't want to far too straight away from the pack with him. But again, for a guy that's touted to be super accurate. He played within an offense that allowed it. His ball placement wasn't there, had bad pocket management, and just lacks the top-end talent that you would need, from a quarterback to hit the deep plays down the field. And that's just why I'm just so far out on Shedeur Sanders within at least, I wouldn't take him within the top 50. I'm not saying he won't go in the top 50. He absolutely will go within the top 50, but I wouldn't because there's nothing that he brings to the table that I'm just enthralled and fascinated about. But Shedeur Sanders. So, but Cam Ward, we both have him number one overall. Like you said, by far the number one quarterback in this class. There's really not even a debate with that one. Do you want to dig into him?
Yeah, Cam Ward, the pros, his improvisation stuff was my number one strength for him. He was a creative player when needing to make something downfield. He has an exceptional arm, at the next level, and the arm slots to make all the throws. Like he kind of just throws it from like kind of a little above the waist, and just everything comes together somehow, some way. Uh, he makes the calls of protection from the line of scrimmage and can pre-snap process things in the moment. Uh, so in terms of like the coverage and the pressure packages, looking at him, and he has anticipatory throws all over his tape, and again the arm to create those explosives with the anticipation. So yeah, the cons, he gets himself in trouble with taking sacks with the improvision. Like there were some sacks where he would just kind of dance around and try and make something happen, and a let's get this ball out, let's live for 2nd and 10. Now all of a sudden I'm taking a 13-yard sack at 2nd and 23, and it feels like a drive is lost because of it. But again, that was another thing of like his defense. There was no trust in his defense from him. So it was really just all on Cam Ward to make things happen. He was overly aggressive in the things he saw. He'd anticipate defenders to stay in zone spots, and he'd kind of just, all right, you're in cover 3, I'm going to throw because this is the seam. And some of those middle-high safeties would just read him out and break on the ball, and the turnover-worthy plays would shoot up. But ball placement, it was buckshot. It created some mistakes over time, but he was still a very overly accurate player. I think some of those things can be cleaned up. It's not like he's an Anthony Richardson with the accuracy where it was just so damning that it was like, okay, I don't know how to feel about this. We can hope it gets better because he's a super athlete, but Cam Ward still has some of those mistakes. But overall, like, I really like Cam Ward. If you dropped Cam Ward, like, I feel like this is going to be a question. If you dropped Cam Ward in last year's class, where would you put him? Probably 4th, Like, I was lower on Daniels than what he became last season, but I would still have Daniels very clear of Ward as a prospect. But I like Ward better than Bo Nix, who I had as QB4. I liked Cam Ward more than McCarthy, Penix, things like that. So it's not like Cam Ward is this far off, like this is a doom and gloom draft class like 2022 where you can't find anything. But I do like Cam Ward in the first round. I do like him in the top 5 enough. It's not a surefire pick, but if you need a quarterback at 1, I get the taking of Cam Ward, but also the Titans, where it's like, well, we have a ton of needs. Does Cam Ward, throwing out Cam Ward at the number 1 pick, does he solve our needs right away? Probably not. So, yeah, that was my feeling on Cam Ward.
No, I'm right there with you. Very good athlete, and I want to use the word improviser rather than scrambling with him. The way we talked about Jalen Milroe's ability to run is not the same that we see Cam Ward. There are often times on film where we see Cam Ward running to then pass the football, and it made me so happy going from Milroe to Cam Ward to see that on tape. I think he throws with velocity. Emphasis on velocity. I'll kind of get to the flip side of that in a little bit. And I do think he's a very patient quarterback that has a good processor. Like you said, we can see him kind of read the defense, call out pass protections, throw with anticipation, like you said. In terms of the flip side to that velocity, I think he throws with good velocity. I think he lacks that like top end arm talent. I think he has a functional arm talent. I think he's going to be fine. I don't think it's like bad. I don't think he's going to have just like the worst arm in the league. I think he lacks like the huge arm, but that's okay. Not every quarterback in the NFL can have, a Josh Allen arm to him. But really the big thing for him on tape is kind of the Superman ball of it all. He is, again, a very athletic quarterback that he leans on it, and it often pays dividends for him. But there are times where he overextends the play too much and gets himself into some very sticky situations. But yeah, overall, I think he's a smart quarterback. I would hope so with the amount of college ball he has played. But he's a smart quarterback who really understands defenses, throws a good catchable ball, and has some really good athleticism to him. So we're both in agreement there with Cam Ward at QB1 within the class. So do you want to run back through your 10-1 before we go to the last segment?
Yeah. Number 10, Quinn Ewers. Number 9, Dillon Gabriel. Number 8, Will Howard. 7, Kyle McCord. 6, Riley Leonard. 5, Jaxson Dart. 4, Tyler Shough. 3, Jalen Milroe. 2, Shedeur Sanders. 1, Cam Ward.
There you go. I have 11-1. I have Kurtis Rourke at 11, Kyle McCord at 10, Riley Leonard at 9, Dillon Gabriel at 8, Will Howard at 7, Quinn Ewers at 6, Tyler Shough at 5, Jaxson Dart at 4, Shedeur Sanders at 3, Jalen Milroe at 2, and Cam Ward at 1. And now we're moving on to the last segment of the